Greetings, everyone. I am Lila Hart, a 26-year-old woman working as an office secretary for a real estate company in New York. I recently married my husband, an Army officer. Initially, my married life felt stable, and my job was uneventful. However, I soon became aware of my boss, a successful and charming married man, who seemed to take notice of me from the moment I joined the company. At first, it was just lingering glances and half-hearted jokes. As the new employee, I made an effort to maintain my distance and avoid drawing attention. Yet despite my attempts, the situation became increasingly complicated. I couldn't deny that my boss's attention gradually made me feel special compared to everyone around me. Today, I will recount a mistake I made when I lost my way and had an affair with my boss. I clearly remember the first time he began to pay attention to me in an unusual way. At first, it was just a few glances that lingered longer than usual and some half-hearted jokes. I was just an ordinary employee, new to the company, always trying not to attract too much attention. Yet, my boss, a successful, attractive, powerful man, seemed genuinely interested in me. I had to acknowledge that he was undeniably handsome and charming. The initial flirtations were subtle and nearly innocuous. He frequently praised my work, showing more interest than my other colleagues. At first, I merely considered it to be typical behavior, attention of a leader. But gradually I began to realize that there was something different in the way he treated me. His compliments made me feel happy, sometimes even a little proud. Gradually I realized that I was having emotions that I had never experienced before. He always found ways for us to spend time together. Whether it was short meetings or after-work conversations, I knew this wasn't true, knowing that he had a family, and I had a husband. But his attention made me feel special, valued in a different way. His attention made me feel important, like I wasn't just another employee, but someone who really stood out. In his eyes, every time he looked at me, the gazes would linger longer than usual, and his half-serious, half-joking words would make my heart. These feelings made me both excited and nervous because I knew I was going down a dangerous path. But I couldn't quite stop myself. The first time we started having private conversations was one afternoon when my boss invited me to dinner at a fancy restaurant. I clearly remember the feeling of confusion and nervousness when accepting his invitation. The meal took place in a cozy atmosphere, with dim lights and a romantic atmosphere very different from the daily work meetings at the office. During dinner, my boss did not only talk about work, but he began to share more about his personal life. He talked about the difficulties at work, about the pressure of being the head of a company. I felt the trust he had in me, as if I was not only an employee but also a friend. His words became softer and more personally. His eyes often stopped on me longer, making me feel confused, but also unable to deny that I was attracted by his charm and sophistication. That evening I clearly felt his affection for me in every gesture. Every word of his seemed to have a purpose, to make me tremble, and indeed my heart began to flutter before him. Although I was conflicted, I could not deny that I was being drawn into the enchanting charm of the man sitting across from me, a man I knew I should not get involved with. In the following late evenings at the office, he and I often stayed sitting after everyone had left. At first, we discussed work exchange, changing unfinished issues of the day, but gradually the conversations no longer revolved around work. We began to talk about life, about the worries and pressures we were both facing him. He shared many private things. There were revelations from my boss that caught me completely off guard. I always sensed something was amiss. I was aware of his family, a wife and children eagerly awaiting his return. I had a husband as well, though our marriage was still fresh. Yet, the way he gazed at me, how his eyes lingered on me whenever I spoke, made me feel unique. His focus was unlike any I had experienced before. I could sense myself being gradually pulled into this unfamiliar yet captivating emotion. He made me feel valued, as if I were the sole person on his mind in those moments we shared. Each time we sat together, the connection deepened, intensified, and although I was aware that I ought to stop, I found it impossible to refute that. I found myself irresistibly pulled into this relationship. One evening, As the office lay in silence, only he and I remained. The atmosphere shifted, becoming strangely quiet. The dim glow from the computer screen served as the sole light source, casting a mysterious and intimate ambience around us. We had long since completed our work, yet neither of us seemed eager to leave. Our conversation drifted away from the usual business chatter, evolving into something more personal. I could feel my breath quickening, my heart racing with each deep gaze he cast upon me. There was a fire in his eyes that I couldn't overlook. Then, in a moment I had never anticipated, he stood and stepped closer. I felt every step. The tension in the space seemed to increase every second before I could react. He gently took my hand. I was surprised, but instead of pulling my hand away, I let it be, feeling the warmth of his hand. My heart was pounding each beat so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. All rational thoughts in my head seemed to disappear, leaving only the overwhelming feeling of the present moment. He moved closer, his breath whispering in my ear so close that I could feel the warmth of his breath on my skin. And then he said, his voice hoarse but clear, "You are truly beautiful." The words were like an electric current running through my body. His words echoed in my head, drowning out all other thoughts. The tension in the air turned into a powerful wave of emotion. I knew this was a line we shouldn't cross, but in that moment all I felt was an intense attraction that I couldn't resist. After he whispered in my ear, I felt his breathing become more rapid. Each breath seemed to heat up my skin. Before I could react, he leaned down, his lips gently brushing against my neck. The initial kiss triggered a sensation that sent chills down my spine. I struggled to maintain my composure, but with each kiss, I found myself enveloped in emotions I had never known. Each kiss grew longer and warmer, while his hands moved across my back, gentle yet resolute. Every gesture made me feel cherished. And slowly, the worries that clouded my mind began to dissipate. I was acutely aware that I had strayed from the right path, yet my body betrayed my mind's intentions. I found myself ensnared in a tumultuous whirlpool of emotions, unable to resist or halt the unfolding events. He began to unbutton my shirt, each button releasing a rush of cold air that caressed my bare skin, sending shivers through me. His gaze was filled with a mix of desire and assurance, hands moving with a delicate precision that exuded an undeniable power. I felt powerless, surrendering to his lead as each layer of fabric fell away, drawing me deeper into a realm that felt foreign. Then, he lifted me effortlessly, placing me upon the desk. Every movement he made appeared meticulously planned, devoid of any awkwardness or hesitation. He leaned down, his hands resting on my thighs, and before I could fully comprehend the unfolding moment, at that moment, we had crossed the line. Everything appeared to burst forth. The intensity radiated from him, every movement a challenge to my reason. His gasp resonated in my ears, heightening my sense of excitement. While guilt surged through my thoughts, I was acutely aware of my wrongdoing. Knew that from that moment on I had cheated, and that was an undeniable fact. But even though I knew that I couldn't escape the intense attraction he brought, I felt myself falling into an enchantment I had never imagined. All my barbers were crumbling. I told myself that our relationship would not last long. It was not true love, just a fleeting infatuation full of temptation and mistakes. I knew that we were embarking on a dangerous path, a path with no future. With each passing day I felt more clearly what I was risking: my family, my career, and my self-respect. I worried that one day the truth would come out, that we would both have to face the inevitable consequences. I imagined losing the trust of those around me, and worse, losing myself. I was caught between enchantment and guilt, not knowing where I would go. But despite knowing how wrong everything was, I couldn't resist the new and exciting feeling. The secret relationship between my boss and me continued even though I was torn between guilt and desire. After the first time I crossed the line, I couldn't stop thinking about him and the feeling he gave me. From his eyes, to his words, to his gentle gestures, everything kept me from escaping my infatuation. Then there was a long business trip that he and I had to go on together, a big company project that required us to stay overnight in another city. I knew deep down what would happen, and I felt a mixture of anticipation and fear as we set off that night when work was over. We returned to the hotel. Not long after entering the room, he approached me. His eyes unable to hide the desire for his gentle, caring gestures were as always making me feel like I was the only one he cared about. He touched me again, and I let myself be swept away by that fascination without any resistance. I have to admit, he is very good in bed. His proficiency and delicacy in every gesture and movement made me feel like I was lost in another world where all my worries and torments disappeared every time he touched me. I was enchanted. Unable to resist his charm that night, we did not sleep from the first touch until the end. Everything was like a series of intense emotions with no end. I remember clearly, if I am not mistaken. We went through 3 rounds together. Each round was like a new discovery, a challenge to every boundary that I thought I would never overcome. That night was a long night, but there was no sleep, and the moments between us seemed to last forever. And I knew that from that moment I had completely sunk into this relationship. The feeling of being cherished and pampered by him made me forget all my previous worries and torments, letting myself be immersed in the enchantment of that night. The next day, after a long sleepless night, my boss and I returned to the company as if nothing had happened. On the outside we remained professional, still boss and employee, but on the inside I couldn't stop thinking about what had everything seemed to have happened, changed for me from his eyes to his words, had a different meaning after that business trip. Our secret relationship continued to take place regularly, but secretly the meetings did not stop at the office but also expanded to hotels in the city. Each time the excitement and thrill filled my mind, making me unable to resist the attraction of this relationship. We often met in his office when everyone had left, or chose discreet hotels to avoid attention. Every time I was with him I was always satisfied, not only physically but also emotionally. He knows how to make me feel special, to make me forget the worries and torments I'm suffering from. Every time we touched each other, every time we experienced those passionate moments, I felt deeper into the vortex of this relationship. Although I knew that it was just a fleeting infatuation, I couldn't deny that the moments with him gave me a sense of satisfaction that I had never felt before. However, after about 3 months of our secret relationship, things began to change. I heard rumors that my boss's wife had begun to suspect us. Little signs in their daily lives seemed to have alerted her. Perhaps it was his late coming home or changes in his attitude towards his family. But somehow she began to notice and probe. I heard from colleagues that my boss's wife was trying to understand and monitor our every. This news made me feel more anxious. In her growing insecurity, she was not merely suspicious, she was poised to catch us in the act. Each day, I lived in dread of exposure, fearing the dire repercussions of this forbidden relationship. My husband, blissfully unaware, was often away for military duties, granting me the opportunity to conceal my affair with my boss. Yet, guilt gnawed at me whenever he returned home, knowing he trusted me implicitly and suspected nothing. His absence left a void that I, though reluctant to acknowledge, filled with my transgressions. It may be difficult for some to comprehend, but in this modern age, my husband and I were, in fact, part of an arranged marriage, an arrangement that seemed a relic of the past. Our families had long envisioned our union, but we had never found the time to truly connect, to get to know each other deeply, like other couples. But everything happened according to the family's plan. At that time I felt that marrying a good man with a stable career like him was the right choice. He was a calm, responsible man and always took care of everything in life. But in truth, between us there was never a strong love or passion like I had expected. Our married life was stable, but lacked the emotional closeness that I had always longed for. That perhaps was one of the reasons why I was easily drawn into a relationship with my boss. Someone who gave me the excitement and attention I had never felt in my arranged marriage. One evening when I was home alone, my phone suddenly rang with a strange text message from an anonymous number. My heart beat faster as I opened the message, and a feeling of dread quickly enveloped me. In the content of the message was clear and threatening. If I did not end my relationship with my boss and leave him, I would regret it. Although there was no sender's name, I knew clearly that it was most likely from my boss's wife. Her suspicions were no longer just probing, but had become a direct warning. The words in the message were angry and harsh, as if she already knew everything, and was just waiting for me to do something to face the consequence. As I read the news, I felt a chill run down my spine. My heart pounding in my chest. The fear I had kept hidden for so long was now before my eyes. I knew I could not continue like this. This is wrong. Relationship not only threatened my job and marriage, but now it had put me in a dangerous situation. Fear was growing inside me, and I knew I had to do something before things got out of hand. I decided to meet my boss at a restaurant on Friday night to talk things out. I kept feeling pressured and stressed, torn between the love I felt for him and the fear of losing everything. On Friday night, we met at a familiar restaurant where we had previously had secret dates. I could see the curiosity in his eyes as I started talking. After a few opening words, I couldn't hold back anymore and got straight to the point. I told him about the threatening text messages from his wife and how she knew about our relationship. I told him that we needed to stop for the sake of our families. Even though he tried to stay calm, I could sense his frustration and unwillingness to accept. He sat silently for a moment, as if thinking about what I had said. Reluctantly, he finally agreed that this was the right thing to do. He understood that we could not continue to sink deeper into this dangerous relationship. After dinner, he understood that we could not continue to sink deeper into this dangerous relationship. After dinner, we decided to spend one last time together. We both quietly went to a hotel where we had met before. That night passed with many complicated emotions about separation, regret, but also a little relief because everything had to. We both quietly went to a hotel where we had met before. That night passed with many complicated emotions about separation, regret, but also a little relief because everything had to. We both quietly went to a hotel where we had met before. That night passed with many complicated emotions about separation, regret, but also a little relief because everything had to. We both quietly went to a hotel where we had met before. That night passed with many complicated emotions about separation, regret, but also a little relief because everything had to. And that was the last time I was with him. The next day, I decided to quit my job at the company. I knew that I could not continue working there, where all the memories with him would only torment me. I needed to leave and start over. I made the difficult choice to stop. And while it pained me deeply, I recognized it was the only path to save my life. The wound it left in my heart was profound. A reminder of a relationship that had marked me in ways I couldn't easily forget. I felt adrift, caught in trivial emotions and unnecessary temptations. Yet, amidst the chaos, I came to understand that my worth is not defined by the attention or praise I receive from others, but by the respect and honesty I hold for myself and those I cherish. It was a challenging journey. I had to confront the truth of my mistakes and endure the guilt and relentless torment. However, this struggle also presented me with a chance to grow, to learn, and to be truthful with myself. While I cannot rewind time to alter the past, I can choose how to move forward. After leaving my old job, I embraced a new opportunity and began anew. I took on the role of head of human resources at a different real estate company. In this position, I not only dedicated myself to my work but also embarked on a journey of personal renewal. I constantly reminded myself that honesty and self-respect are paramount, essential not just for others but for my own well-being. While everything is transient, the lessons learned from this experience will remain with me indefinitely, as I reflect on my true worth and the invaluable aspects of life. Having navigated the complexities of a hidden relationship, I feel compelled to share one heartfelt message: halt now before it becomes irreversible. While it's easy to get swept away in the thrill and transient joys that this relationship offers, it's important to recognize that such feelings are often not lasting and can lead to pain. Do not compromise your integrity and self-esteem in pursuit of fleeting emotions. Engaging in deceit not only harms you but also profoundly impacts your loved ones. If you persist, you will find yourself in a constant state of anxiety, fearing the day when the truth comes to light, potentially costing you everything: your family, your career, and your dignity. Drawing from my own painful experiences, I urge you not to allow momentary feelings to cloud your judgment. Embrace love authentically, confront reality, and make choices that align with your values. While ending a relationship may seem daunting now, It is the only path to safeguarding what truly matters in life.